Welcome to Lawton Small Talks. I'm here today with Nora Wesner and Tommy Mlodzik. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Tommy.
It's okay, it's Polish.
And they're both going to talk about their work today. First, Nora will start, but a little bit about how this will function. Nora will talk for about 15 minutes, and then you will have the chance to ask her some questions. Please put your questions in the chat, and I will read the questions out loud for her to answer. And then Tommy will go for another 15 minutes, and the same thing with the questions. Please place them in the chat. All the work that you're going to see here today, you'll be able to view online on our website at thelawtongallery.com, UWGB. And you can also view the images on our Facebook page. So, Nora.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello. How do we get it so I'm not staring at my parents actually right now?
Hold on.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to kind of be moving a cart around a little bit, so just be aware of that. But behind me, I have my senior show work, a body of work that is titled Memories Deconstructed. It consists of 3 paintings, which the other one is right there in the corner. They're a little big to fit in the full screen. And then we've got 3 sculptures, which are over there. And I'll give you some more information so that you can see the pictures close up. But each painting has a corresponding sculpture. And the concept of the work is basically me trying to explore my relationship from like physical keepsake memory items and then the moments and memories that are connected to them. So in this series, I decided to choose 3 letters that are from this massive, extensive memory box that I have. So the 3 that I chose were a letter that was sent to me that I used to correspond with a friend through letters probably around my freshman year of college. And then the second pair, so the sculpture and painting, were based off of a letter that I had sent in correspondent, but never actually put it in the mail to send it because, you know, life gets away with you and that happens. And then this last piece here in the corner is one that I intended on being a different letter, but with kind of everything that was going on and finishing this piece in COVID, ended up being a letter that I had written to myself. And this idea kind of came about probably around 2 years ago when I started kind of deciding to shift through my memory box that had, you know, embarrassingly kept, you know, weird things as far as from like a tiny piece of tissue from a weird first date to letters, journal entries, bracelets, things like that. And it was overflowing and I decided it was time to get rid of these things. So in doing that, I, you know, took these items and tried to maybe cheat a way of throwing them out, but instead give them a new form or a new life in sculptures and these paintings. The paintings kind of provide more of an emotive version to these letters. So they're supposed to display kind of the process of going through, finding the letters, and how different it is when you are recalling these memories and these moments versus living in them and experiencing them for the first time. So my process was to paint 1 full layer to completion. And then after that, I would go through and completely paint over it and do a new layer and maybe have, 90% of it covered up, and then I would have, little bits here and there that are kind of peeking through from that last layer. And I would go through that process probably, I think, 4 or 5 times until I got to the final layer. And then over the top of all of it, I put physical text over the top that samples from the letters themselves. And then the sculptures kind of play along with that, but instead of it being metaphorical, I physically destroyed these letters, and I cut them up and rearranged them to say something that was, more to what I was experiencing at that time rather than the original intent of the letter. And then I adhered that to the body of these found objects. And the found objects that I chose, the process I went through to picking these objects was instead of going to Home Depot or buying something on Amazon that I thought would fit with it, I wanted to thrift them so that they had their own memories and their own past experiences that kind of came with them to add my own memories and experiences onto them. So it kind of had both of those aspects put onto the sculptures. That's pretty much how the two came about. And I think from working on this about 2 years ago until now, that it's kind of getting close to finishing this concept. The next step is just to try to figure out a way to get the what you get from the sculptures and what you get from the paintings into one piece. So instead of them being separate, I want, instead of them to be a pair, to kind of be one piece. So that's my plan for the future with this concept. And yeah, that's what it's all about. So if you guys have any questions and you want to put them in the chat, I can answer them. Otherwise, that's all right. Let's see. Read it out loud. Okay, so this question is: the painting that uses the letter you wrote to yourself has a very soft feel, especially in the heavily outlined painting that was from a correspondence that was received from someone else. Is there something that that had you make that choice? Yes, so each one of these letters are from very, I guess, different points in my life. So this was kind of like, this piece here was the first one, the correspondence between somebody else. And it's, it's really harsh and kind of more lively and has a lot more color and bold pieces to it. And I think that was, more of an excitement and excited to kind of start this journey that I was taking, going to, an art school or school for art. And then this last one, which you were mentioning, which has like a softer feel to it, definitely, it was a letter to myself, kind of completing this journey and completing college. So it was a lot more, I guess, tender and like, it's okay that, maybe this isn't necessarily the way that I had viewed it going. And I wrote that in March, and then I completed this painting, at the end of the summer. So it was kind of, just reflecting on that, and definitely much more of like a tender feeling to it, that I was like, yeah, it's okay that that happened to me. So I think that's where that one comes from.
Any more questions for Nora? Please put them in the chat. All right. We have no more questions. We'll move on to Tommy. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name again.
Hi, guys.
So we're going to take a little trip. Sorry for the motion sickness. Welcome, Tommy.
Hello, hello. My name is Tommy Mlodzik. I created the ceramic sculptures and pieces, well, ceramic wheel throne pieces in the senior show. I think for the sake of having to move the camera all around, I'll try and bring some of the pieces in front of the camera to show you. But before I show you the specific pieces, this show kind of stemmed from my junior year. I created 300 teacups for a display showing interaction with community and the uniqueness of individuals within that community and how the actions of individuals in that community can change the overall look of the community. So from there, I wanted to expand more to look at individual identities and how those kind of can come about. So this show kind of shows personalities and their kind of physical symbols to describe them. So this one right here to show first is my representation of like being downcast or depressed. So its entire form on the inside is covered by the top half of the lip that is depressed over the top of it. The lid features a handle that is kind of awkward to grab. You kind of have to work and want to take it off. It doesn't have that natural middle hold that most vessels do. This one here is a representation of like being reserved, being bashful. So it's kind of got a little bit wider belly, kind of like a kid, kind of waiting for an answer, waiting to speak. And its lid slightly covers its lip, so it's got that slight hint of a shield protecting its very top lip. Right here is my piece. So silhouette kind of looks like someone who's hunched over with their head downcast. To pick it up, you have to pick up from the chin and lift up, be able to view inside. All of these have very different types of glaze that are in various layers. But the foundational glaze on all of these is very kind of brown and blush in skin tone. So it reflects kind of that human palette that we all find ourselves with. So this one right here is disquietude or anxious. And disquietude means to be at arms, to arm yourself for the threat or something to be a threat. So this features 3 different arms or walls that kind of protect the form. But in sending that clay out, you lose the amount of jar space and function that could be provided if that clay was reassigned just back into itself. This one right here is kind of more my representation of pride, not in a good way, not in a bad way, but more of how it represents in the body. Whenever you feel pride, or whenever I feel pride, I find that I raise my chest a little higher, set my shoulders back a little more, so I kind of reflected that into the jar. But when pride gets too much in your head, you lose that ability to function. So this one right here is pretty flashy, but it represents shallowness because it's completely sealed up, even though both of these parts are hollow. So when you go to look inside, it's only got maybe an inch of usability. So it physically is shallow, but it's kind of stunning to look at. Another one that I chose to be visually stunning was vanity. So it kind of reflects a perfume bottle, because smell, look, all of those things are heavily tied to vanity. But then, due to this long neck and very thin hole, it's really just kind of full of itself, and it can't take in much more other than what it is, even though it's beautiful. Now we're going to do a little spin so that I can get to this side of the show. So this big boy is my representation of boldness. It's very light and big and bold. As you can see, the glaze lines on it are as well. So right now I'm just kind of giving a basic overview of all these pieces, but there are more detailed statements connected to each one of these pieces to explain it just a little bit better than what I am currently. This one right here is a representation of open-mindedness. So when you look inside, it looks like a large bowl with a deep-seated lid. When you open that lid, you can get down to the base in the center of open-mindedness. You can see what they stand for and what their foundation is. But when you put that cover in, you still have all this room to fill. They're still willing to take in ideas, critiques, and wisdom. This guy is closed-mindedness, so it's completely fused. So all of its ideas and representation is on the outside, and you can't do anything to get in to the ideas. Inside, you can't change them. So this is what it is. That's how they say. I'm never serious for too long, so this is a snowman that I made. This one back here is a representation of fickle, of a fickle personality. So it's very bomb-like in its appearance. The lid is just on top, like it's ready to fall off or blow. The glaze design on it is very linear, because without that order, they don't do well in chaos. And last but not least, which is a great lead-in to the question section, I have a jar for the representation of airing your thoughts, whether it's about the show, which is this jar is used for. It's got some notes in there. But it's also just kind of to invite conversation about people, identities, personalities, and my reflection on them versus yours. Thank you.
Read the question and answer it.
So what was your process to come up with all these personalities? Were they sketches? Did you have a process of writing and verbalizing? So each of them kind of stemmed differently. Some of them, their overall ending form was not what I threw initially. I probably threw 6 or 7 versions of each of these jars. And the statements are fairly coherent, but when I think of the statements for the personalities, they're very linear, or they're very kind of scattered and they don't make a lot of linear sense. So after it's fully made, I can kind of take those thoughts that I had and put them into an ordered fashion. But some of them were built out of like playing, like this one, it's kind of a hard skill to turn that sort of a lid over, especially with that much play. So this one was kind of born out of play and reflection. Open-mindedness and closed-mindedness were some that I had that were like deeply thought about, especially nowadays, because it seems to be a hot topic of whether you're open-minded or you're closed-minded. Are you willing to look for your own research? Are you looking to just take what is presented to you at the surface? Other ones like shallowness and vanity were informed kind of by what I would see in TV shows and how I see people who kind of, I dress very plainly, I dress very simply. So kind of those were inspired more from outward reflections of what I would see on other individuals. Yeah, I did know what the glazes were going to look like ahead of time to a point. All of the glazes featured here are glazes that I made. But the cool thing that I like about glazes are not like the pops of color, but I like the microcrystalline effects. So I don't know if you can see this on camera, but the glossy parts are obviously really shiny, but then even my matte parts have a shine because there's so many crystals that are inside there. So I like that for the visually stunning. But then I also wanted the glazes to be able to kind of change and adapt to however they do in the kiln. So there was a little bit of freedom for them to be as they are. Yeah. And then to answer that kind of second part of that question, did you let the form of the final piece inform the outer design? For some of them, yes. Specifically, this one of disquietude, because I put a black glaze down on this inner ring just to kind of show that kind of fear, or to emphasize that fear kind of feeling. But up on the top, in those rings are different colors, along with on these arms going out, because to me, when you're anxious, you don't want to show that you're anxious. So you try and present those colors and try and present more of a calm and not so anxious outward expression. With this exploration into abstracting already abstract ideas, where do you think you'll take similar works like this in the future? I was actually talking to my mom about this yesterday. I might be trying to get some work like this into hospital waiting rooms. I have a chronic illness, so I spend a lot of time there. So I think it would be cool to have representations of kind of abstract personalities, whether it be like more the mental health type of personalities that are reflected here, or even just like other things like that. And I think ceramics have a great use because they can be cleaned really easy, they can be interacted with, and they have quite a bit of depth all the way in the round. So I would like to try and explore doing more things like that with this kind of higher level abstract work. I think so.
All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
One more.
We have one more question for Nora.
Oh,
Sorry.
are you good?
The very bottom.
Very bottom. Let's see. Okay, one more question. Going forward, are you more excited to paint or keep going with sculptural pieces? Or do they continue to have or to exist together, which is pushing you further as an artist painting or sculpture? I think probably a combination of the two, but as of right now, I think with kind of exploring this concept for like over 2 years, I was doing it 2D with a lot of like watercolor and drawing and things like that, and I wasn't really hitting it for me until I started doing more sculptural pieces. So I think definitely leaning more towards doing some more sculpture like pieces in the future, just maybe even just more like texture elements on the canvas instead of having it really flat faced. That can even pull what I need it to, but definitely more sculptures with this concept that I'm more excited about, but trying to pull my painting background and what I know from there to kind of elevate the found object sculptures. So hope that, make sure, yep. Hope that answers that question.
Okay, thank you everyone so much. If you have any concerns or more questions, feel free to either put it on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. This talk was recorded and will be posted on our website for later viewing. If you came in late or if you want to show it to other people. Under the Emerging Independence virtual exhibition tab on our page. All right, thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.